Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Next Take podcast, the podcast where we have conversations on different topics. So, it is our first episode of Black History Month. And the first person that we're going to be talking about for Black History is someone that, definitely we haven't spoken about before. One that I watched a movie about, and it really inspired me to want to talk about her, and which, by the way, is a great movie starring Cynthia Erivo, actually, um, and that is Harriet Tubman. So let's talk about her. So Harriet Tubman, born in 1820 in Dorchester County, Maryland, and then died on March 10th, 1913 in Auburn, New York, was an American bondwoman who escaped from slavery in the South to become a leading abolitionist before the American Civil War. She led dozens of enslaved people to freedom in the North along the route of the Underground Railroad, an elaborate secret network of safe houses organized for that purpose. On Veterans Day 2024, Tubman was posthumously awarded the rank of one-star, I think it's Brigadier General in the Maryland National Guard in recognition of her military service during the American Civil War. Born into slavery, Armanita Ross later adopted her mother's first name, Harriet. At about age 5, she was first hired out to work, initially serving as a nursemaid and later as a field hand, a cook, and a woodcutter. When she was about 12 years old, she reportedly refused to help an overseer punish another enslaved person, and she suffered a severe head injury when he threw an iron weight that struck her. She subsequently suffered seizures throughout her life. About 1844, she married John Tubman, a free black man. In 1849, on the strength of rumors that she was about to be sold, Tubman fled to Philadelphia, leaving behind her husband, who did refuse to leave, her parents, and her siblings. In December 1850, she made her way to Baltimore, Maryland, when she led her niece, Cassia Jolly, and her niece's 2 children, James Alfred and Armanita, to freedom. That journey was the first of some 13 increasingly dangerous forays into Maryland, in which over the next decade she conducted about 70 fugitive enslaved people along the Underground Railroad to Canada. Owing to exaggerated figures in Sarah Bradford's 1868 biography of Tubman, it was long held that Tubman had made about 19 journeys into Maryland and guided upward of 300 people out of enslavement. Tubman displayed extraordinary courage, persistence, and iron discipline, which she enforced upon her charges. If anyone decided to turn back, thereby endangering the mission, she reportedly threatened them with a gun and said, "You'll be free or die." She also was inventive, devising various strategies to better ensure success. One such example was escaping on Saturday nights, since it would not appear in newspapers until Monday. The railroad's most famous conductor, Tubman, became known as the Moses of her people. It has been said that she never lost a fugitive she was leading to freedom. Rewards were offered by slaveholders for Tubman's capture, while obviously everyone else celebrated her courage. John Brown, who consulted her about his own plans to organize an anti-slavery raid of federal armory in Harper's Ferry, Virginia, now West Virginia, referred to her as General Tubman. About 1858, she bought a small farm near Auburn, New York, where she placed her aged parents. She had brought them out of Maryland in June of 1857, and herself lived thereafter. After 1862 to 1865, she served as a scout as well as nurse and laundress for Union forces in South Carolina during the Civil War. For the 2nd Carolina Volunteers, under the command of Colonel James Montgomery, Tubman spied on Confederate territory. When she returned with information about the locations of warehouses and ammunition, Montgomery's troops were able to make carefully planned attacks. For her wartime service, Tubman was paid so little that she had to support herself by selling homemade baked goods. Following the Civil War, Tubman settled in Auburn and began taking in orphans and older adults, a practice that eventuated in the Harriet Tubman Home for Aged and Indigent Negroes. Tubman was a patient of the home from 1911 until her death in 1913, staying in a building known as John Brown Hall. The home later attracted the support of former abolitionists, comrades, and the citizens of Auburn, and it continued in existence until the early 1920s. Tubman also became involved in various other causes, including women's suffrage. In the late 1860s and again in the late 90s, she applied for a federal pension for her work during the Civil War. Some 30 years after her service, a private bill providing for $20 monthly was passed by Congress. So just a little bit on the Underground Railroad as well. But I do want to mention this because it's not mentioned here. Just based on the movie, which I'm going to say is fairly close to probably what happened. She, when all of this kind of started, or how they portrayed it, how it started, was her trying to go back and get her husband when she fled from, she fled her owners. And the hardest part about it, I think what really started it off for her was, or being so good at what she was doing to free people was, she went back for her husband and found out he was married to someone else and she was pregnant. So that was a bust. And, but she was able to free, as I mentioned, her, I think it was her niece and her children and then her parents. And, um, yeah, that's how it started. But a little bit on the Underground Railroad, like I mentioned. So in the United States, a system existing in the northern states before the Civil War by which escaped slaves from the South were secretly helped by sympathetic Northerners in defiance of the Fugitive Slave Acts to reach places of safety in the North or in Canada. Though neither underground nor a railroad, it was thus named because its activities had to be carried out in secret, using darkness or disguise, and because railway terms were used in reference to the conduct of the system. Various routes were lines stopping places were called stations. Those who aided along the way were conductors, and their charges were known as packages or freight. The network of routes extended in all directions throughout 14 northern states and the Promised Land of Canada, which was beyond the reach of fugitive slave hunters. Those who most actively assisted slaves to escape by way of the quote-unquote railroad were members of the free Black community, including such former slaves as Harriet Tubman. Northern abolitionists, philanthropists, and such church leaders as Quaker Thomas Garrett, Harriet Beecher Stowe, famous for her novel Uncle Tom's Cabin, gained first-hand knowledge of fugitive slaves through her contact with the Underground Railroad in Cincinnati, Ohio. Estimates of the number of Black people who reached freedom vary greatly, from 40,000 to 100,000. Although only a small minority of Northerners participated in the Underground Railroad, its existence did much to arouse Northern sympathy for the lot of the slave in the antebellum period, at the same time convincing many Southerners that the North was a whole would wait as a whole, there we go, would never peaceably allow the institution of slavery to remain unchallenged. And that is the episode on Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad. Um, so yeah, again, I do recommend the movie. The movie was really well done. Again, it does, as I mentioned, stars Cynthia Erivo, playing Harriet Tubman, um, and another familiar face there as well that kind of got her into it. I'm not sure if everything is true. I won't give anything away for those who haven't seen the movie, much more than I have already kind of given away. But again, it was mentioned that she was married in here, but I'm not sure if everything was accurate, but who knows? I'm gonna trust it. Yeah. So, anyways, very good movie. I wanted to shed the light on her, but yeah. So that's basically it. As mentioned, our next episode will be coming next week. We'll save it for what that's going to be next. Then, and yeah, that's it for me on for this episode. We'll be back next week with another one. Bye, everybody. If you liked what you heard with our podcast, you can head on over to our website, which is solo.to/next take podcast. There you can get any of the links to any of our social media, which is Facebook, Instagram at Next Take Podcast, and Twitter, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Next Take Pod. You can also find links to our Reddit page and many other things, I'm sure. Can't remember all off the top of my head. You can also email us at mikeltanyka@gmail.com. There you can send us any inquiries you have, any questions, or also any episode ideas. And if you do have episode ideas, just make sure you put in the subject line episode ideas, and we'll add it to our list. If you also liked us, you can like us, rate us, follow us on any of your favorite podcast apps. You can rate us, however, on Spotify and Apple Podcast. We would greatly appreciate that. And we'll also move forward and share or spot a light on those who give us 5-star ratings in the future. That is it for us. We'll see you next time for the episode.